Alright, this is Colynn Browne, period 6 of Miss Stort's class, and I'm going to do 4.6 for you guys, composition of radicals. I'm going to teach you guys how to take and solve one of these radical equations. First things first, got to learn what a composition is. Composition is where we substitute one function or equation to another. Good example of this is going to be, take this off here, f, whoop, there we go, 4 is equal to 5x plus 9. Now, with this equation, we'll take substitute this x for 4. So we'll go f of 4 will equal 5, and x now becomes 4 plus 9. Now that'll be equal to 20 plus 9, because 5 times 4 will equal 20, and then your final answer is going to be 29. So this is common composition right here, and there we go. And it gets a little more difficult though, because we all know algebra 2 does. But whenever we take equations and substitute those in instead of that, say our next one, g sub x is equal to 3x, and then h of x is equal to x minus 4. See, what we have here is a standard compositional question to see just about everywhere. But these are both linear. Due to the fact that in this equation it has one or more variables, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to find g sub h, and your x is going to be equal to 2 in this equation. So let me take, and I'm going to do this right over here. Kind of substitute that all off. Remember, we're looking for this, so we're going to have your g is equal to 3, but here, let me move this up here for you guys, because I don't want to run out of room. Alright, 3, and your x will be substituted in for x minus 4, but since our x is going to be equal to 2, we're going to do 2 minus 4. And what we're going to do is take these two will equal negative 2 times 3. So negative 6. And that is equal to 2. Oopsies. Alright. H and G. And so your G sub H with x2 is equal to negative 6. That's how you usually find on your standard homework questions, stuff like that. Gets a little more complicated though when we add in quadratic equations. Quadratic equations we all, of course, know. If you don't know, really, it's where the constants do not equal 0. You're going to mainly find it when your x is the square root. You can usually see it in your calculator when you put it in. I'll throw up an example one up here real quick. Oh, there goes that marker. Alright, now once you have a quadratic and a linear equation, well, the quadratic and linear in the same equation, then you have to simplify the quadratic before you can solve though. Just want to put that out there before we start up. G sub x is going to be equal to x minus 3, and then h of x is going to be equal to x squared plus 2. That's your quadratic. And this is your linear. Now, with your quadratic, whatever you first see, you have your x squared. So what you do is, well, when we put up what we're trying to find, and then simplify it, probably be a lot easier. If we know what we're looking for. H, oopsies, that's supposed to go the other way. X. Our x in the equation is still going to be x. It's not going to have any equivalent number right now. But yeah, we're going to take square this off from the rest of our equation. And so we'll have your normal, you're going to substitute that x for your quadratic. So x plus 2. And since it's squared, you have 2 of these. And that's how you simplify your quadratic. And you'll still add on plus 2. Oh, sorry, what am I doing? You're minus 3 from there. Because that is your x, and once you substitute that out for this, x squared makes your 2 equations, because they have to be times themselves. And you go ahead and you're going to simplify it even further. Take x times x, x squared. So you have x squared and then plus 2x. Now you're going to go underneath and do the same with 2. So 2 times x is going to be 2x. And then 2 times 2, obviously, plus 4. If you don't know how to do 2 times 2, you probably shouldn't be watching this video, just gonna let you know. Alright, and then add on your minus 3 just to end it off. And add and simplify it even more. So you're gonna add x squared. Now these two will add up together since they're same. They both have the same x on them. And 4x. Now, since these two, those two you can put together, and these two also. So those both equal 4x. This will equal plus 1. There we go. So your equations, all in all, is going to equal. Apologize for being such a slow writer here today. Not the best at speed writing. Plus 1. And this is going to be your answer. It's exactly how you lay it out. You always have to have this on it. If you do not have that, you can probably get points off whatever you're doing, your homework, your test, your quiz, whatever. Always add on what it came from, what you're trying to find. Now, what we're going to do, the next thing we're going to do, a little bit harder. This is where it gets more difficult. Like I was saying before, always happens in Algebra 2. We always have to have a little bit more difficulties. Radical equation is an equation of the square root. So here, let me throw one up here. G sub x is going to be equal to square root x plus 9. Now, that is going to be your radical. You can always tell because it's square rooted, kind of sticks out there. Now, our other linear is just going to be a quick one. Then let's see, I can make up here 3x plus 1. There. And this is going to be your linear. Most always you're going to have a linear inside your equation, so it'll always be linear, radical, linear, quadratic, or linear, linear. And it's not hard to figure that out, which one's which. I apologize. One moment. to try to find is try to find g sub h sub x. There we go. Let me try to find that. Always try to keep all your equations like a little bit separate from what you're doing, because otherwise you might mix it up, see it wrong. That's never good. Might even confuse your teacher, and she might take off points. Now what you're going to take is that square root. Since you're going to have g is going to be first equation and then h is going to be inside of it, you're going to take and go, square root's going to be over everything. So your x is obviously going to be 3x plus 1, and then plus 9 because of that. So there we go, and it's a pretty easy equation here. 3x plus 10, because you're not summing anything in, you're just plus 9, and that's the only thing. 1 and 9 are the only things that can go together, so it's going to just be plus 10 positive. But actually, that will be your answer. It's going to be, just remember, never forget to put this here. If you don't, like I said again, you get points taken off. It's no fun. Always just massive trouble. So this is going to be your answer. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, why don't you simplify that even more by taking off the square? You don't necessarily do that with these. You're not supposed to. That's how a radical equation is. You don't take away the square. Well, the root, that's what I'm saying. But if you ever did want to get rid of this, for another equation, you go 3x, say, plus 10, and you just square it to get rid of the square root. So to simplify it even more, oop, that looked like an H. You do that. Alright. And that concludes our video. But just before we go, just to clarify a little bit here and there. Actually, I think we should be good. And it's usually easier to tell whenever you put these in your calculator, because in your calculator, a linear equation, it's gonna look like that. It's gonna take, let me grab mine here. Take, and you're gonna put it, whatever equation you have, you're gonna put in one of these calculators. The parent function for linear is just x. So they'll usually look something like that, like straight. Now, quadratic equation that's not the best graph I could do, I will give you that. What I'm going to put in for the quadratic equation is one we used earlier in the video. Apologize, I have a really bad allergies today. We're just going to use this equation. The parent function is just x squared. But that. So when you put in x squared, you'll go y equals on your calculator, press this button right here, and you'll put it in, throw x squared. It's going to look like this. It's almost going to be like a U, like that. And just remember, it's always easier. Just type these in your calculator. It'll be 2 seconds, and you can figure out what it is if you ever get confused. And it's just really helpful. Always use your calculator. It's ridiculous if you don't. You didn't fail your quiz, or quiz, test, homework. You'll fail. You don't know what you're doing. Now, the radical parent function is just going to be x, like that. Now we put that in our calculator. We're going to go second, and then x squared. Always remember press second first, otherwise you're just going to do it squared nowhere for no reason. And you're going to press enter, and then graph. It's going to look like this. It always starts at a point, but doesn't go. It'll always just go straight infinity as long as possible. Not straight, one thing. It'll just be an infinite equation, never ends. Same with all of these. So if you get confused with your linear, quadratic, or radical equations, you're trying to figure out what's what, always throw them in your calculator. Just go y equals on your calculator, and then plug in your equation. And let me just take that off. And then just press graph. And then you're just going to see with these, the linear, you have that. Quadratic, you have that. The radical, you'll have that graph. Pretty easy stuff, but if you ever get confused, just come on back to and rewatch it, and we'll relearn. So it's a good day with you guys, and hope you guys learned a lot about the composition of radical functions. You have a good day, and there we go. Bye, Storts.